Welcome, everyone, another episode of Financial 15. This is a show Kevin and I try to provide some financial knowledge, something that can improve your financial life. Do all that in 15 minutes or less. Today, we're talking about the transition into retirement, the financial components, the emotional components. It can be a little struggling, a little hard for some people. Some people might struggle. We're going to help solve that today. You want to stick around.
Yes, the one thing that everybody wants to get to is retirement, that carrot at the end of the working lifespan where you want to deal with the things that you want to see. We want to deal with it, but it may not be as easy as you think it is. So if you want to find out more about this or any of the retirement videos we've done, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plenty of information there that you can take a look at and deal with on the retirement side. If not, also like us on Facebook and definitely go to our website at beckerorr.com. Plenty of great content to take you through your transitions into retirement and how that's going to work. Now, Clint, you mentioned it, breaking it down, sort of the emotional side, the financial side. Why don't you start us off with one, and then we'll work our way through it from there.
That's fantastic. We'll start with the financial side. Now, we spend a lot of time on the financial components of retirement. That's usually where the retirement planning is focused on. Am I going to have enough money? How do I minimize the taxes? So we won't spend too much time there, but a couple of tips to help with that transition from the financial lens. One of them, update the budget. It's hard to know exactly what you're going to spend in retirement. We've done other videos trying to give people an idea of the spending patterns we see, how to do your budget. And you can certainly go through those videos to help out. But we often encourage folks, you have to live it. So after the first year of retirement, update the budget. It'll probably change. It'll probably be a little different than you thought, because as you settle into a retirement routine, your spending patterns might adjust. So updating the budget, I say usually the end of the first year for sure. After that 12-month period, you want to do an update. And then every couple of years after that, you just want to check in, part of the overall financial planning process, making sure the budget's on track and you're still using realistic numbers as part of your projection. So updating the budget is key. Another one here, Kevin, related to that, still on the financial items, it's that withdrawal plan.
Yeah, updating the budget means nothing if you don't know how to take the money out. And that's the biggest factor. Now, where do I want to draw it from? Am I taking it from my non-registered investments? Am I drawing down my RSPs or converting to RIFs and doing it that way? Do I have a pension plan? What am I getting from Canada Pension Plan or OAS, depending on where my age category is? How you break that down is going to have a huge factor to the kind of money that you have left at the end. Not only that, but the kind of income that you're going to be getting and the taxes you're going to pay on that. If you're drawing down from non-registered investments, may not be as tax-oriented as if you're drawing down from RIFs, which are pure income. So having a withdrawal plan in place and knowing where you want to draw your or where you want to draw your funds from and how much you want to draw from each year is definitely an important part that you have to know so that you can sustain your lifestyle going forward.
Yeah, and we've done videos on that, so you can certainly check those out to get more details. But part of the transition, have a budget, update it regularly, make sure you understand the withdrawal plan. And I think that links to this piece right here. The financial planning is not a one and done. It's an ongoing process.
No, not at all.
So you don't just have a plan, you put it on your shelf, go, great, that is complete. I've read that book. Not the case. You have to review it regularly, and certainly that helps with the transition. Like we talked about, you update the budget probably after the first year. You're probably going to update it every couple of years after that. The overall plan is likely going to have updates at similar time intervals. So it's an ongoing process, and that helps out with the transition. So those are a few financial elements. We'll shift gears here and look at it through an emotional lens, because it can be a big change when you go from working for decades to suddenly retired. How do people handle that? What are some ways that can help with the transition? The first one here, I think, Kevin, is just recognizing it can be a big event.
Yeah, and it's a major life change. The biggest factor to realize about retirement that I don't think people deal with is that this is not a static situation. It's an ongoing process. Just because I've worked all my life and now I've stopped, it just doesn't, everything goes back to one sort of scenario. It can be very life-changing. All of a sudden you have to realize that I don't have to get up early in the morning possibly and go to work. I can do some different things that I wanted to do that I've been putting off because I only had weekends to look at it. And how am I going to pay for this going forward, depending on what my income was before and what my income is going to be here? So recognizing that, getting into retirement, as excited as it can be, it is also a major event, and people have to realize that that's going on. A lot of people don't think about that before they get to that point. So the emotional side of things can be very different from person to person to person.
It can be. And so again, we're trying to say, how do you handle the transition? Part of it is just having that recognition, right? It can be a big event. Everyone's going to be a little different, but it can be a large life-changing event. You get married, perhaps divorced, you have kids. Retirement could be in the same category in terms of the level of change. So you have to be prepared for that. Recognizing it is the first part. helping out with the second part here, you have a sociologist, Robert C. Ashley, and he looked at it as people trying to find a new role in life, a new purpose. And
Yes.
he had a couple of phases people go through. We'll explain some of them here. The first one is that pre-retirement phase. And really, that's where all the planning usually happens. That's when people are excited. They're doing the financial plans. All right, I'm going to spend $5,000 a month in retirement. I've saved up. I got my pensions. And then you get into that second phase, Kevin. I think that's the one people normally envision when they think about retirement, right? It's that honeymoon
Oh,
phase.
it is. Yeah, it's the honeymoon phase. And I mean, that's basically what it is. I mean, you're sitting there and you're ready. You're 2 years away from retirement or whatever the case may be. And you're picturing, I'm going to be golfing. I'm going to be spending vacation time in Hawaii. This is what my retirement's going to be like on a daily basis. Well, it may happen for a little bit here and there, but as we've mentioned in videos before on a Retirement Smile, everything goes in phases, right? We've had that pre-retirement, as you mentioned. The honeymoon phase, I mean, it could be a year, it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years. It depends, or it could be a 5-month scenario, depending on how you've got it. But that honeymoon phase it's the huge anticipation. And when it finally happens, you're on vacation. And vacation is the most wonderful thing in the world. And that's what you want to do. But does vacation last forever?
No, that's where you get to the disenchantment phase. The realization sets in that it's not permanent vacation. And you can, and it's not everyone, right? Everyone's going to experience it differently.
Yeah.
But when Ashley went through this, he had separate categories. And some of the criteria of the disenchantment phase, you could start to feel boredom. It can have a loss of purpose. It can have a loss of identity. Sometimes if you're in a job that requires high demands, you have lots of decisions to make, lots of responsibilities, you can identify with that sense of responsibility. Then when it's taken away, you feel like you've lost your identity. And you might get a little bored. You might feel a little lost. All of that can set in. Sometimes depression can set in for similar reasons, like we just talked about. So that disenchantment phase is real. People go through that on a regular basis, and you have to realize it can kick in. Another one that's related to that disenchantment phase, specific example, but maybe you retire early, decide, you know what, I'm retiring at 50. Yep. It's going to be fantastic. Many decades of retirement. And then you realize your friends and all your family members, they're still working. So you're the only one on the golf course. And you're doing these activities alone, and it gives you maybe a different sense than what you were expecting, right? So expectations and reality are not meeting. And that's really the whole key of this disenchantment, is that realization starts to set in. But it's not a lost cause, right? Because you can move to the next phase.
Yeah, and basically what'll happen, like you go through the disenchantment phase and you're trying to figure out exactly where you want to be. You want that reason to get up in the morning again. And that's where you're reorienting. All of a sudden, your goals are different. I mean, maybe I start volunteering somewhere. I pick up a part-time job or something. Things that you need to do, realizing that, okay, I had this beforehand. Now that I'm in retirement, I have to find a reason that I want to do these things again, or I want to do something different, or I want to make sure that I get back to that place where I was before. By habit, we usually have a routine, especially in our work lives. This is what we want to do. Not having that after the honeymoon phase is sort of like, well, I need a routine. If I've retired early and I got 30 more years of this, I can't continue to go this way. So I reorient myself. I look at, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? That's sort of the scenario for making sure that you got those points. And that leads right into the routine, does it not?
It does. You kind of find a new role, a new purpose in life, or at least a new structure for your day. And that kind of solidifies into a retirement routine. So you have the different emotional phases there. So a couple of tips, because that's kind of the transition on the emotional front that most people will go through. How do you help transition through those? Well, one you just touched on was a great one there, Kevin, was structure, right? People work for years. You get some benefits out of work, one of which is definitely a structure. You get a routine, right? You set an alarm clock, you get up, you brush your teeth, shower, whatever your morning routine is, you go to work, and then suddenly that's gone. Initially, it can feel fun and exciting, but then you might feel a little lost, right? So you need something to provide that structure. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're working for money and you got to be overly stressed. It can be a hobby. It can be volunteering. There's lots of items that could fill that gap. But just the idea that you need something to provide a reason to set the alarm clock in the morning every now and then, a reason to give your day a bit of structure, helps with the transition. And I mentioned one of them, a part-time job, but maybe you can expand on that, because that's another one of the tips.
Exactly. Some people, I mean, maybe you just don't want the same routine you had. If you were at a high level job or you had a lot of stress and all of a sudden, you know, I want to retire from where I am. Maybe you're young enough that, you know, I don't really want to get completely out of the workforce, but I don't want to do anything where I'm dragging this home with me at night. So maybe I find a part-time job, whether I'm at Home Depot or something like that, helping out, or I'm doing clerking stuff somewhere, or even driving cars to help things going forward. A part-time job can be something that, well, gives me a little bit of extra income, but it keeps me into a routine and keeps me busy. And again, it doesn't have to be a paying job, as you mentioned. It can be volunteering. Maybe I've wanted to do this for a while. I can go and volunteer at a center that I've really wanted to be a part of for quite a while. Or I can be taking a look at, maybe I'm going to do ski lessons for somebody just on the side because that's what I want to do in winter. It gets me out, it gets me active and helps me out. So a part-time job of some format is always a nice way to help transition you through that retirement and also give you that purpose, as you mentioned beforehand, to the structure that we've been looking at forward.
Yeah. And we're social creatures, right? Humans.
Yes.
So it gives you an opportunity to interact with new people, right? Which is certainly important. We got a lot of that through work. And now that work is gone, you might need to find a way to replace that in retirement. And a key element here when you transition into retirement, part of it is having some mental flexibility.
Big time.
Often when we envision retirement, we're envisioning that honeymoon phase where it's going to be phenomenal permanent vacation, and then expectations might not meet reality. It's a little different, and that can create some of that disenchantment we talked about earlier. So having some flexibility in your vision of retirement can be helpful. And a quick example here that we've been living through has been the pandemic.
Yes.
Like how many people envisioned their retirement in the pandemic? I'd say almost none, right?
No.
You retire, and then suddenly 2020 happens and your vision of retirement completely changes. So that's a dramatic example, but the idea of having some flexibility will make it easier to transition into retirement, ease some of your stress. So being flexible, certainly important. So we covered a few tips there on the financial front, on the emotional front. It is a big topic. We can talk about it probably for 10 more videos. So if you have questions, something that's coming to mind based on this, please visit us. You can always go to the website. Kevin's pointing to it right there on the bottom of your screen. chatwithclintonkevin.com. Fill in the form. We would certainly love to hear from you. Any parting comments, Kevin?
No, I think you've done a really good job with it. Just remember that retirement is not as simple as I quit work today and I'm going to hit retirement tomorrow. You have to plan for it. Other than that, we're good with this one for now, and we'll bring more videos in the coming weeks ahead.
Take care.